Quorum Radio, baby.
Great. A Quorum Radio now on with the two Mikes. That's right. Mike Scheuer and his cohort, Colonel Mike. Colonel Mike, of course, is a clandestine former government contractor, worked in Latin America, worked in Asia. Somebody who's a very, very good raconteur. Quick, go to Google that. He's a great conversationalist. And Mike Scheuer is well known. He's somebody who some of you may recognize as the author of Imperial Hubris and other books. Mike, what are some of your other books, Mike Scheuer?
Well, the first one was Through Our Enemy's Eyes. The second one is the one you mentioned, Imperial Hubris. And then there was a third book called Marching Toward Hell, America and Islam After Iraq. And the final one was a biography of Osama bin Laden, just called Osama bin Laden.
Oh, good. Okay, great. Did you have any heartfelt conversations with Osama before he
No,
met
I did, but he recommended once to the whole world that if they wanted to know what the Muslim world was mad at, they should read my book. I don't know if he thought.
Oh, great. That's good. I mean, that's a pretty. I hope you put that in your on your dust cover, right?
No, that was not a game winner for me. I
All right. Well,
a traitor.
Yeah. Well. All right. Well, gentlemen. I mean, the reason I wanted to have you on is that, since you guys have both done clandestine work, fair enough to say.
Well, he was the clandestine. I was the in-case officer. In case you need me, you call me.
Ah, okay. Great logistics. Yeah, I need a nice chest. I got a dead body. Right. Okay. So that was a joke. That's not true. It's not.
That's okay. That's okay.
My own injection of
people die of heat exhaustion all the time.
That's
right. Yes. All right. Good. Let me just give a background on Michael Scheuer. Shamelessly taken from his wiki page. He's an American former intelligence officer for the Central Intelligence Agency. Okay. Blogger, author, commentator, and former adjunct professor at Georgetown University's Center for Peace and Security Studies. One assignment during his 22-year career was serving as chief of the Bin Laden Issue Station, which was the Osama bin Laden tracking unit at the Counterterrorism Center known as, quote, Alex Station from 1996 to 1999. He also served as special advisor to the chief of Alex Station from September 2001 to November 2004. Scheuer became a public figure after being, well, I don't know this stuff. Would you want to go through all the dirty details? Is that good enough?
No, that's more than enough, sir.
Great.
If people want to read the dirty details, Wikipedia is not hard to find.
Yes. Okay. And, I wanted to bring you guys on because I do a lot of posting on JFK assassination related sites. And I think we've had an issue going on in our country, a phenomenon that is not by accident, it's by design. It's called Blame America First. And we've been seeing this for decades. I'm talking like 7-8 decades or more. And it's something you can appreciate. And it came to the fore in 1963 and thereafter when we started to see all these books come out concerning the JFK assassination, blaming who? Blaming the United States institutions like the Central Intelligence Agency, FBI, LBJ, people like, the Texas oil magnates,
the Hunt brothers,
any combination.
The Hunt brothers,
right? Clint Murchison, right? All these
Carlos Marcello,
right? I mean, I think he's probably an American citizen or was. I mean,
right.
Come on. And so anybody but the left, anybody but the KGB, anybody but Fidel Castro, anybody but us, we look in the mirror, we see bad guys. Our country's divided, and this is just not a hunch on the part of a guy in Peru, but Ian Mihai Picepa, who was a 2-star general with the Romanian secret police. He, in fact, went to the Oval Office, not after his defection in Bonn, West Germany, but before, when he was sort of like the right-hand man to Nicholas Ceausescu, the dictator of Romania. He went to visit Jimmy Carter with Nicholas Ceausescu, and then he defected. And he was somebody who basically came out and said, spilled the secrets, and that our friend, our favorite Marine, Lee Harvey Oswald, actually was not just a lone gunner. He was more like an accompanied commie gunner who was basically put up to it by the KGB. Now, this is controversial, but so what? Programmed to Kill, Lee Harvey Oswald, the Soviet KGB and the Kennedy Assassination was his book. And he recently wrote a book with James Woolsey, Operation Dragon, and now it's the late Ian Miai-Pacepi, recently passed away. A man I interviewed, but that's for another podcast. You guys are much more interesting than this, not me. So anyway, and they basically said, hey, all evidence points to the fact that the assassination carried out by Lee Harvey Oswald was ordered by Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, acting through what was essentially the Russian leader's personal army, the KGB, now known as the FSB. This evidence, which is codified, as most things in foreign intelligence are, has never been jointly decoded by a top U.S. foreign intelligence leader and a former Soviet bloc spy chief familiar with KGB patterns and codes. Now, don't worry, unless you think I'm going to do all the talking, you're wrong. I'm going to shut up after I've given you guys an adequate pitch to hit it out of the park.
I'll let Mike go first. How's that, Bill?
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So, yeah, with that, basically as a backdrop, and also, keeping in mind Brian Littell, CIA analyst for Latin America, he suggested Castro knew about it. He cites the words, the debriefings of Florentino Aspiaga, who was a high-level Cuban GRI operative, very high level, did a lot of espionage when he was just a kid. He was like 18, and he was, doing all sorts of interception work against CIA operative teams and Operation Mongoose teams, entering Cuba in a clandestine manner. And oddly enough, he was told on the morning of November 22nd, 1963, to quickly go to another hut. They called him and said, stop intercepting CIA teams. Focus on Dallas, point the antennas towards Texas. Bizarre. And that's what happened. So anyway, well, look, the two Mikes, Mike Scheuer and Colonel Mike, take it away. What do you think about this? Mark Lane, one of the biggest JFK conspiracy book writers, had a Soviet code name of Cram. How does that happen? Take it away, boys.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, most any asset you have will have a name, or one you're trying to develop will have a name of a pseudonym. So I don't know enough about him. I read the first book he wrote, the Rush to Judgment book, but I haven't read. Yeah. I guess he has a couple more after. I think he has a couple more after that.
I believe he did. I simply don't know. In fairness to Mark Lane, maybe he was being groomed and he didn't even know it.
Could well be, sir. And he would, in that stage of his development, he would have a name, an alias, which they would use in their correspondence. So that's pretty common practice. It's such a long time ago that the thing that strikes me the most about the business is that there seems to be overwhelming evidence that there was more than one shooter, and that has never been really discussed. And I, for one, always wanted to believe that it was the Cubans or the Russians or a combination of both who did it. But in recent years, we've had an enormous development of information that George H.W. Bush was not the most pro-American person in the world. We've had enormous amounts of information just recently, as Colonel Mike and I were discussing earlier with Dr. Fisher, of the number of Americans who are willing to work with foreign powers to move the United States in a direction that's suitable to them, the Americans, and to that foreign power. So, I don't know what the answer is to this, but I have a more open mind than I used to. especially when you watch over and over again the attacks on 9/11, and you see building number 7 just collapse for no particular reason at all. It was hit by nothing. And
Oh, weird.
it is exceedingly weird, sir. I don't have any question that the planes flew into the Twin Towers. That's clearly, you'd have to be an idiot to deny that. But the collapse of the other building is relatively inexplicable, I think.
And
And
there's
there's
40 stories, right?
yeah, and it went down just like you watch when they blow up old football fields or stadiums or buildings. They
Yeah,
come down
sure.
in a very orderly manner, not tipping over or anything else. So my mind is much more open to nefariousness, maybe conspiracy thinker that I am, but it
Yeah.
seems to me if there's one thing that needs to be done, it has to be an absolute full review, a full release of all the papers pertaining to the JFK assassination.
Sure. Absolutely.
So I don't,
Yeah, I mean,
I don't rule out anything.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
The one thing I would add for people listening is that there was a codicil on the agreement that was forged in the Congress on the 9/11 Commission, that the agency and all the other organizations pertinent to the attack and to the work against Al Qaeda, that information would be as redacted as necessary to make it releasable to the American people after the special commission's report was released. That has never been done. And it's never been done because the information in it contradicts probably 2 or 3/4 of the information contained in the final report. That doesn't say anything. That doesn't mean the Americans did it or anyone else did it. Al Qaeda did it, except perhaps for Building 7. But what it means is it fully explains how many times that the Clinton administration had a chance to solve all these problems by killing bin Laden, and also preventing the Bush administration from going to war in Iraq.
Oh, man. What an incredible boondoggle that was, without even mentioning 4,000 plus lives lost.
Right. Without 9/11, there's no Iraq.
Yeah, what an absolute it's cataclysm of human destruction and monetary destruction.
Well, we took out a civilization. We took out a civilization that was as old as the earth and thought that we were doing something great. And, you know, Mike can tell you that was his beat, the Middle East and South Asia. You know, you got to have a strong man. Certain countries got to have a strong man. So what did we do? We collapsed a civilization. We collapsed the country. We destroyed the Middle East. The place is still in shambles. They're still trying to figure out if they could take out Syria. You know, they're working towards doing another grift job with the Iranians on oil with the Russians. I mean, it's still going. It's going to go on forever, Bill. Mike's probably, you know, I would say this to add to Mike's story on 9/11 is when you see Building 7 go down, you know, I was in those World Trade Center buildings many times. I worked on Wall Street years ago, and I ate at Windows of the World and all these places. And I had friends who had family that passed, you know, and they were killed in that building, and some close relatives, true relatives. But when I saw 7 go down, I just saw the insurance company sign flashing, like, here we go, let's get them all down in time, you know? I mean, it's obvious you have plenty of people on the web talking about thermite and controlled explosives, but isn't it odd, Bill? And we go back to the conspiracy, Mike, that George Bush's son got the contract for the security of those buildings just a little bit before they went down. So he was part of that security system, you know. Another one of those things where Mike says,
jaw-dropping.
Right, Mike? How about like there's not, what do we call it? Consequences?
Consequences.
You know? But, you know, the 9/11 thing, if you look at Wesley Clark on YouTube, Wesley Clark describes what was going to take place within the Middle East, 7 countries. that they had on the drawing board with Rumsfeld. Who else, Mike? There was Rumsfeld and there was Cheney and, you know,
Wolfowitz.
Wolfowitz, you know, and then they put in the Viceroy. Remember him, Paul Bremer?
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever hear the name Paul Bremer, Bill?
Yeah, of course. He was the acting. He was like ran the country for 2-3 years.
Yeah, and you don't hear of him anymore. He's in the witness protection program like the rest of them. They make their money and they're gone. You know, they're gone. You know, I use two slogans pretty much on my show with Mike. One is the grifters and the other one's in the witness protection program. When you don't see these politicians or these neocon and bureaucrats and they're gone, they're usually in the witness protection. They got enough money somewhere stashed overseas, and you know, he's probably in a canoe up in New Hampshire looking for trout or something, you know. He made his mark and that was it. And they gave him his money and said, go home. And if you remember Rumsfeld, just before the buildings went down, he was talking about like $2.6 trillion missing from the budget somewhere in the Pentagon. 2 days later, here comes a missile hitting, you know. So you got all kinds of stuff going on. But to go back to JFK,
yes,
JFK
please.
is, you know, I was a kid. I guess I was an early teenager. I was in a barbershop when it happened.
Were you in Dallas when that went down?
No, I wasn't in Dallas.
Were you with Jack Ruby?
No. I was with Santo Traficant throwing dice in Miami.
I knew there was something tied into this. Good.
No, really, I wasn't even smoking cigars then, to be honest with you. But you know, everybody blames Santo and Carlos and now again, we were just talking, like Mike said, this is very important to tie into your show. We just had a guy on our show, Dr. Richard Fisher, who is great on China. I mean, this guy knows everything about the military strategies and what kind of military and equipment they have, right? And again, the propaganda that the Chinese have used by releasing this bioweapon on America and holding our media at bay by using Facebook and Google and shutting down Trump and shutting down all the media, right, Mike? Yeah, the Chinese are tremendous at this deal. And this is what probably the Russians did, if they did it at that time with JFK. You know, they knew who the usual suspects, and they knew who what did they call them? What did Stalin call them? Useful idiots.
Useful idiots.
Yes, useful idiots. They knew the useful idiots inside our Democratic and Republican Party. Listen, it's both ways. The door don't swing one way in America. Both parties, one head, you know? So
absolutely.
You even had Ted Kennedy recently. It's been exposed. Ted Kennedy wrote a letter to the KGB when Reagan was running for president. So we've always had this affection for communists in America, and it's at high speed now. The young kids have no idea. They should just go live in Cuba for a week and then stay there for the rest of their life, you know, like Venezuela. But you being in South America, you know, everything goes up and down, and tomorrow it's $3 a loaf versus $1, whatever. I just think with the JFK deal, the KGB was very good. Okay, if he was handled and Oswald was being handled, right, Mike? They had him, but there's no lone gunman in this deal. There's no way.
I mean, I actually
there was other people involved.
What's that, Mike?
I said I think clearly that Oswald took the fall, and he was meant to take the fall.
Right.
But the forensics of it, even at that, you know, 1963, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
But the forensics seem to indicate that there were more than one shooter, and we've never been willing to take that on. And it just occurred to me, sir, that I think sometimes it's not so much blame America as it is to blame Americans. You get killed for both. But in my writings, what I've tried to say is, listen, these people consult you every 4 years or every 2 years or 6 years, whatever it is, and you elect them and they do whatever the hell they want.
Right.
And I would think that there is no greater enemies of America than the younger Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld. They're just clearly anti-American in the sense of what we consider to be traditional American behavior.
Well, hey, Mike, let's go back to Reagan, right? How many attempts did they have on his life back then?
Yeah, more than one.
Well, and then you could say, well, LBJ, you had Kennedy and you had LBJ, and was LBJ part of the Dallas money, or even if the agency or some rogue guys? How about rogue guys within the agency, right?
Well, surely. I have to say, Colonel, that for 23 years, it never occurred to me that such evil could come out of the agency as what I've seen from John Brennan and his cohorts while he was there. And it's caused me to rethink about how naive I was, not to realize that when people didn't want to do something, it was because they were afraid of the media rather than they were afraid of anything else. They were afraid of failure. They were afraid of unbelievable things, but they were never once in my 23 years afraid of having Americans killed.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird, huh? The things that we've gone through.
Well, it's so many people criticize me, for example, for not caring about, if we had to kill bin Laden, civilians would get killed. Well, so what? My job was never to protect foreigners. And it was never to protect foreigners who knowingly settled close by or lived with a man who was bound to attack America in America sooner or later. And that seems to be a passé kind of idea, that our responsibility as an intelligence officer or a military officer is to kill the enemy in numbers that make him stop fighting us.
Right, sure. Right, and then of course that was operative, and when we invaded Iraq, they figured, hey, the more Americans we kill, the more distasteful this war will be. Same with Afghanistan, and they went in there.
They never intended to win, sir. That's the problem. We have not had a president since 1945 who's intended to win any war he's entered.
Have you ever heard that before, Bill? I bet you never heard that.
Yes, I have. And in fact, Colonel David Hackworth, may rest in peace, lamented publicly. This is what really got him into trouble. One of the most decorated American soldiers ever in Vietnam lamented how boneheadedly stupid the whole prosecution of the Vietnam War was, because we needed small unit operations designed to ambush the enemy, cut them to ribbons, and then exfiltrate or just get out of the way, like they were doing to us. We come in there 12, 15 every day with hot food. They would be ready to ambush with RPGs and mortars and heavy machine guns. And we were just,
I tend to think, sir, that it's absolutely ludicrous for a country as powerful as the United States to neutralize that power by fighting the enemy on his own terms. To fight an insurgent group with insurgent methods mean you lose, because you're fighting either as a government that's under stress within its own society, or by a foreign power that won't have the support of the people to fight an insurgency. What you do is go in and kill as many people and as much infrastructure as you can and leave, and kind of say, if you think that was bad, wait till next time. Leave us alone.
Yeah, right.
It is a madness. Our intellectual elite, our governing elite, are quite mad people. The idea that we have a duty to protect, for example, anyone on this earth except Americans is a complete madness.
Absolutely.
I'm going to throw this out there, Mike and Bill. I'm going to throw a name out that you know, and I'm just going to give you, like, back then, this was the 70s, I think. Yeah, during Jimmy Carter's time. And then today, look at the difference in America, 70s to now, right? Okay. There was a former agency director by the name of William E. Colby, correct?
Yes.
And William E. Colby was on a Senate hearings, and he was being grilled by lefties like Ron Dellum and the so-called Blue Dog Democrat in Washington State. I forgot his name, Frank something or other.
Frank Church?
Yeah, Church Committee, the Church Committee. And it was all about, does the CIA assassinate leaders around the world? And does the CIA do this? And does the CIA prop up dictators like the guy in Chile, Allende, and so on, right? And stuff
Yeah,
like that.
Pinochet.
And yeah, and you know, at this point, it was a I don't know what you would call it, but he had to give them something to basically, he thought, keep the agency together, because they really wanted to dismantle the agency. And that's another thing you got to remember. JFK wanted to dismantle the agency because of all the screw ups. He wanted to dissect the agency. Okay, so we got to put that into the JFK deal too. But at that time, Colby thought, and remember, he was one of the OSS members who was one of the founders with Donovan, and he was behind enemy lines in Norway and Sweden and all that in the European campaign of World War II. So he throws out there what they called the family jewels. He says, oh, yeah, well, we do some things like that. We have poison pens and cigars and stuff like that for Castro or whatever, you know. He threw some verbiage out there about, yeah, we kill people. That's our job, right? Okay. And they went off the wall. They went off the charts. They went off the charts. Oh my God, get rid of him. You know, gotta replace him, you know. And I think him and I'm trying to think, Mike, what was the other director? They never talked together over the years.
Richard Helms?
Yeah, Richard Helms and him never saw eye to eye. The rest of their lives, they would walk by each other in a hall and never even wave at each other. It was just like cold blood, you know. Helms thought he gave up the family jewels. Oh my gosh. Well, come on, everybody in the street that was reading Mad Magazine knew you killed people. So why wouldn't you give them a little something? He thought he calmed them down and the agency would stay intact. You understand? And he was an old school CIA guy, believe it or not, who didn't even have a bodyguard and didn't even have the limousine taking him home every day. He took his little Fiat 124 Spider convertible from Italy. So
you know something? Yeah, let me just rudely butt in. I'm a New Yorker. I actually called him in 1996, about 10 days before he disappeared. I wanted to contact the author.
I wonder now, you called him 10 days before. You must know something.
I was with Jack Ruby on November 22nd. Now listen, so bottom line is I called him because he wrote the book Lost Victory about Vietnam and the Phoenix program. I said, this guy would be awesome to bring to Columbia, where I was living at the time. And the publisher wouldn't give me his contact details. So I said, screw it. I looked in the Virginia phone directory. I called information.
Oh, he was the easiest accessible guy.
Oh
you
my
could ever
gosh,
know.
this guy was just like an open book. So I called. I said, do you have a number for William E. Colby? Yes, hold on, please. They gave me the number. I said, the elderly gentleman picks up the phone. I said, Mr. Colby? Yes. Are you the William Colby that wrote Lost Victory? Yes, that's me. Yes. Oh my gosh. Speaking to the director of the Central Intelligence Agency. You can't make this stuff up. And then I was going to be kidnapped and assassinated and get out of town. No, literally, my father saved my life. He said, Bill, always register with the U.S. Embassy wherever you are. So I never paid attention until then. And we're living in Colombia, and I did it. And then I moved. And then they contacted me, said, yeah, the FARC is looking for you. So I got out quickly.
Mike, do you remember that time? Were you even looking at things about that time you were in school? I know, but did you remember that hearing with the rabid communist Ron Dellums grilling Colby about, Castro and dictators and so on?
I've seen the tape. I don't know if I remember it at the time, but I've seen the tape. Dellum is the guy that Clinton had shot in the back of the head, wasn't it?
No, Dellum. No, that was Ron. That was Ron something or other. He was his secretary of commerce. Ron Brown. Ron Brown grew up in the school of. Ron Brown grew up. He was groomed by Mario Cuomo, Governor Cuomo's dad, who was the icon of New York. Was elected twice. He was the saint of the Italian American community in New York. Can do no wrong. Pro-choice guy when everybody was Catholic and, but pro-choice, and everything had to be democracy, but except abortion. That was Mario Cuomo. And as high as the taxes you could get, just get them. That was the Mario Cuomo I remember as a young guy. But yeah, it was a very interesting story because, Colby He just gave him a little sizzle. He gave him a little sampler, like an appetizer, and they went off the charts. But
Yeah.
today, you have, like Mike said, Brennan and Clapper and Yapper and all these other guys who were spying and part of this conspiracy to spy on a presidential campaign and then on a president while he's in office. But nobody says a word. Yeah, then you have impeachments, and then you have,
nothing happened. Oh, he was.
Oh.
Well, Trump is bad. You all know it. I mean, Trump is Trump. He's just terrible.
yeah.
You know?
He doesn't speak
Childish.
like us. He doesn't speak like us. He's very rude. Right now, I'll be honest with you, Mike and Bill, I could go for a mean tweet and $1.79 gas. One mean tweet. Because when he was tweeting so mean and so cruel and rude and crude, I mean, we had $1.79 gas. I couldn't give a damn.
Well, you know, the one
Really?
thing that's so startling to me is that there's a politician that thinks that if we have an enemy in the world and that enemy appears to be united or holds the country together by the force of his demented mind or depravity or just skill, why would you want to see 4,000 or 5,000 Americans killed instead of the expense of one bullet through his damn head?
Right.
What sort of humanitarianism is that? You know, and if the president of the United States is afraid he's going to get killed if he should get elected president, he shouldn't run.
Well, there's some good jobs. There's some good jobs at the Shell gas station down the road. You could hire over there.
Maybe that's the only thing they're fit for is to be president. Look at this clown we have.
Yeah. Yeah, you know. Well,
it's always been a mystery to me, this business about not killing, whether it was Saddam or Gaddafi or Mullah Omar or one of the South American guys.
yeah, of course. Well, but you know something, don't you think really the same aversion to the idea that our country could kill somebody? I mean,
I have no objection. I've never had any objection at all. And it's why I'm persona non grata in my own country. I have no objection to killing America's enemies, any place, anytime. What I'm opposed adamantly to is invading foreign countries, ruining their cultures, their population, their infrastructure, because my dad happened to get shot at by some crazy Iraqi or some other goofy reason. Or democracy in Afghanistan. Can you imagine going to war for democracy? You got to be an idiot. Who gives?
Hey, listen. I mean, yeah, but the other thing that really gets me is that, but they see that, oh my gosh, there are elements in our government that would use violence, okay, to achieve American political objectives and strategic needs. Well, okay, well, you're going to tell me that that doesn't happen in the Soviet Union or Russia or Cuba or communist China? They think they're going to play clean?
You know, the idea of playing clean, of course, we have an American Medical Association that killed more people than Hitler, six times over, 10 times over. What the hell is this? We have games, we have movies, we have everything is about killing people. We watch these black and white kids burn down cities and ruin buildings and rape people and destroy so much property. And then we're going to be upset about killing Saddam Hussein. You know, it is an amazing, how can you hold those two ideas in your mind at the same time?
It's called blame America first. If you hate America and you love our enemy's position or their whole package, then you know you will hold America to a higher standard.
Yeah, and we die and we get bankrupted and our armies get beat. We haven't won a war since 1945 because our leaders have not meant to win it. That's it. They were afraid of how the media treats them, how the papers treat them. You killed civilians. Well, no shit. How are we going to win a victory without killing people?
Well, the Chinese, Mike, they leashed a bioweapon on our country. The Congress doesn't want to say the name Wuhan, certain people, and they don't want to use the word bioweapon, right? Our people were dying. Our people were in nursing homes. They were locked down by executive orders and edicts and governors who should have been thrown out of a window for what they did to these people. the older people. And again, like Michael always says, just go back to Ezekiel Emanuel when he was doing the Obamacare deal. Part of the deal was, and they're still on the table, anybody over 60, 65, they're not going to be earning money. They're going to cost us money. So we can get rid of them. I just saw a black congresswoman the other day talking about that again. Like, hey, listen, these guys are worthless. If they hit 70, let them die, man. Who cares? You know, more money for us. And remember, all that Social Security they don't have to pay. You know what I mean? So you have more money.
You know, disgusting.
Well, you know, it's you're in the third world. We're headed to the third world. You know, Bill. We just want to race down there.
Totally agree. Yeah. I mean, you know, they say, who's the guy that said he was former undersecretary for the Treasury under Reagan? Paul Craig Roberts. And he said, you know, hey, the US dollar ceases to be the reserve currency of the world. It's over, man. We become Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, you can't really say that you're a loyal American, I think, if you continue to support presidents who go to war without a declaration of war, or who decide that it is our responsibility to protect Israel to the last person, without any treaties between us, without any real interest in the great democracy of the Middle East. And it was the problem before World War II. They had to kill Lindbergh's reputation by calling him an anti-Semite in order to get us into that war, along with cooperating with the British in their covert operations in the United States. This is a country that has clearly lost its way. The Constitution is known by many people. It's surprising how many people you talk to in your course of your day or the course of weeks who really have read the Constitution as it was written. What they can't understand is how it's being used to do what we do today.
Oh, it's totally dishonest. I mean, you have to understand their intent. You have to get into the language.
Absolutely, sir.
Right.
Absolutely.
And if you don't, you're being dishonest.
If you can find a way to distort the Second Amendment, you are one of the world's great liars, because so much of the Constitution, with a few examples, was written so you and I and the average guy could read it and understand it, because they wanted us to be a brake on arbitrary government. And if you don't understand that, we get imperial presidencies, to quote an old saw.
Did you notice I'm going to go back to this JFK thing in a second, but did you notice the trip, Bill and Mike, the trip to Europe for Biden and his administration? All the press is just so smooth. Oh, President Biden is going to meet with Boris, you know, and the relation is going back to where it was before Trump destroyed the European, you know, all this stuff, and he's going to meet with Putin. Can you imagine when Trump went to meet Putin? I mean, they never wanted him to talk to Putin. This is another country with nuclear weapons, and it was like, oh, it's all in collusion. Well, you know, and then let's just go back for a minute. We're talking about JFK, all right? Well, what happened after JFK? They killed his brother, Bill. So now, was that the KGB again? Was that the mafia again? Was that Meyer Lansky with the casino in Havana, who wanted to get the mob back into Havana to get gambling? And who killed? Was that the Democrats? Was that the Republicans? Was that the CIA? Was that the KGB? Right? Look at Kennedy's son, Robert Kennedy Jr.'s son, is out there every day educating people about these non-vaccine vaccines, saying, don't give it to your kids. Don't take it for yourself. He's been anti-vaccine for children for years, okay? The Democrats won't even touch him with a 10-foot pole. And that was, you know, he was St. Robert Kennedy. He was St. RFK, remember? Mike, remember he was St. RFK?
Yeah.
Right?
He was one of the sainted, yes.
He was the anointed. He was sainted and anointed, just like we have now the new saint of the year, and it'll probably be many years to come, St. George Floyd. You know, it's upside down here,
what a fine young man whose life was cut short.
Yes,
He could have done so much good. He could have aspired to higher office.
well, there was two pictures I saw. he could have been a doctor or an astronaut. I saw both of them.
He could have been
And they
Don
cut his
Sham.
life very short.
Sure. He had this thing for pregnant women and guns, the Second Amendment. He held up, and in fact, he
Yeah.
had this problem with juxtaposing guns to a pregnant woman's belly.
Right.
Such a fine
He was a
man.
home invader. He was like a termite. He was a home invader a long time ago.
Yeah, he was high on drugs. In fact,
That's what he died from.
Well, sure. I mean, he said, I ate too much drug. Yeah. And now they try to say that, spin that. He didn't really say that. And he,
Said, "I'm not
he had
feeling well."
COVID-19. What's that?
Well,
He said, "I'm not feeling well, sir."
Yes. Yeah. And what did he do? Wasn't he in a Cadillac Escalade?
Yeah,
A semi-homeless guy.
Yeah.
What was that about? Buying drugs, maybe?
Maybe
Well,
No, it was.
selling
Go
drugs.
ahead.
in the great Commonwealth of Virginia, home to Washington and Mason and Madison and
Sure.
Tyler and a host of others. The founders and great people in our early part of our country's history. They're looking to take the names off the schools and put this guy George Floyd's name on.
Oh,
So
man,
I'm
what a
wondering, like,
stupid-
what would be the logo on the helmet? Like two guns, or like a cocaine capsule or something, or maybe a tab of fentanyl. What would be the mascot, Mike?
counterfeit
What would be
20.
the mascot?
Counterfeit 20.
You just don't. You're just. You don't want to go to that one. You want to go to the John Dillinger High School. That'd be.
Oh man, come on! I mean, they want to change the name of DC, Washington DC. I mean, we know that Christopher Columbus wasn't perfect. I mean, but hey, man, he brought about this tremendous interchange of peoples and crops and technologies and opened up the world to a new race of people. I guess you'd call them the Creole, the American people, and the American political experiment in Latin America. Who wins all the beauty pageants? Huh?
Yeah,
Right? You blame
exactly.
that on Christopher Columbus, man. Next time you see a hot babe walking down the street, from Venezuela or
Thanks,
Colombia.
Chris. Hey,
Hey,
Chris.
Bill, you're absolutely right. Years ago, I used to watch this Miss Universe thing, and I would always pick at least the last 3 or 4. They either Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, Philippines, Thailand, something like that, But most of the girls coming out of South America do win those Miss Universe pageants.
Why? Because they look great. That beautiful blending of European
Yes.
and Amerindian and with a touch of that African and who knows what else, ethnicity all together. And it's just mind blowing. And then you see the girl from Miss England, and she's got, just a small chin and doesn't look too good.
A little on the horsey side.
Or she says she has piano legs or toothpick legs, one of the two, and just doesn't look too cute, man. And I saw this when I went to college at Holy Cross, man. But then there was this chick from, I think it was from Colombia. Oh, she was so gorgeous, man. A few years later, that's where I went. I married a Colombian, may she rest in peace. And so viva la diference. And thank God for Christopher Columbus, he really made that tremendous encounter between peoples and cultures and cuisines happen.
Well, let's talk about the Ugly
Exactly.
American. You remember the old Ugly American movie with Marlon Brando, right? Okay, it was always the Ugly
Yes.
American. Now, and we always get taken out. Mike, over the years how they hate America when something happens. But did you notice, Bill? Nobody's saying
Yes.
boo about the Chinese. They unleashed this weapon on us and around the world, and they're not even offering the free non-vaccine vaccine. We're giving this away free. We pay for it with taxpayers.
Yeah.
And Biden's over there. I'm going to give you 500,000 of these and 500,000 of these. And China
They're so
is just,
poor.
yeah, China is just silent. They're not giving anybody a cotton ball, a dab of alcohol, nothing. I mean, this is a calculated enemy of America. And we have enemies within this country. And what do they call them usually? Traitors, right? Traitors? Okay.
Traitors is a
We have
fair-
two members.
Columnists.
Going back to killing, Mike, does our only democracy in the Middle East worry about killing anybody?
No, they got.
When they
sugar
have an
daddy
enemy, what do? Would they eliminate them immediately?
Well, really, it's an odd thing, but the Israelis really, I think, signed their own death warrant when they didn't push the Palestinians into Jordan, into Syria initially. That would have
Yeah,
calmed
well,
things
they
down.
sure. Well, yeah, but Mike, I mean, why the hell are these people always in this suspended animation of being refugees in refugee camps? I mean, the Armenians haven't been in refugee camps since 1919. I mean, they went to France, or they went to Italy, they went to the United States, they went to England,
Well,
they
I
went
think
to
in some way,
Australia.
absolutely. I think there's a lot of people who don't like, in the Muslim world, who don't like Palestinians. First of all, it was my personal experience in working, but also, you know, we have not only supported the Israelis in almost every way possible, and usually without question, but we have
Yeah.
also prevented the end of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict by so many times when the Israelis had the upper hand militarily in solving their security problem and intervening to stop it. You know, it is, we know so little about the world, and we will support anyone who can chant the word democracy as if that's what this country is about.
Right.
Yes, it's like a voodoo
It is.
ritual. Democracy, democracy, democracy.
It's a
Yeah.
function. It's
Nation
a
building,
of,
nation building.
It's nation building and democracy, and our infrastructure is dying, and our voting is controlled by George Soros, voting machine makers, and the Chinese. So we got a lot of work to do at home. I think America first, before
Yeah.
America is gone, is probably a pretty good
No,
slogan.
absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's funny here in Peru. I remember a couple of years ago, I went to this lady's office. She worked at the central bank. And I noticed that her finger up to like the second knuckle was like blue black. And I was like, this is weird, man. I didn't say anything. I mean, who knows how that happened. She stuck her finger in a light socket accidentally. And then I recall, oh yeah, they just had an election. And in Peru, you go with your government ID, and it's got your picture, it's got your fingerprint, it has like your signature, and then you go to your voter precinct. They don't do too much for online voting, and you go to a voter precinct, you present your national ID, and they open up a book and they look for Mike Shire, and they look at the picture of Mike Shire on the card that Mike Shire supposedly has. They look at Mike Shire, they look at the picture in the book, look at all three, and they say, oh, okay, that's good. Yeah, here's your paper ballot. Here's a pen. Sign here. Give me your finger, please. They fingerprint you. You put your fingerprint in the book next to your name and your picture. And then they used to, no longer, about 8 years ago, they discontinued this. You used to stick your finger in blue-black ink, or index finger, and you vote, it's over. You can't go back and say, yeah, hi, I'm here to vote again. Not to vote again, but to vote surreptitiously and illegally, fraudulently.
And people
And
weren't
they
offended
look at
by
America.
that. Huh?
What's that?
People weren't offended by that, were they?
What about the ink?
About the ink and the identification.
No,
No.
no. They look at America and say, "You people are children, man, stupid."
You're stupid.
And then,
yes, stupid.
and get this. You will see peasants with coming in flip-flops and sandals, and people making $150 a month in a good month, and they get a photo ID. Why is it that, I mean, you want to tell me that Black people are too stupid that they can't do that? They can't get online at the county seat or ask their son or daughter with a car, or a neighbor who has a car, or somebody in the church with a car. If they live, let's say they live in a rural area of Georgia, and they want to get their photo ID, and they don't have a car, and they're poor. Well, they ask somebody, a member of the family, sometime before the election every 4 years, I want to get my voter ID or whatever, and please take me to the county seat, or please take me to this government building in the county, and let's get it all squared away and get my birth certificate and all those things. I mean, if it's important, you do it, but they do it in Peru. It's a poor country, developing country. So I don't know. I don't get it, man.
Black people in the United States, I think, were giving second thoughts until the whatever happened in 2020. Maybe they still will, but they seem to be able to absorb an enormous amount of racism and vilification from the Democratic Party. It's like it's still the slave master relationship for them. No matter what happened, like Biden, they've documented that Biden was a racist for every part of his career. Yeah. Even today, they find out that he and his son regularly use the N-word. So according to the son's computer. So you wonder, wow, what is this? What are they trying to do here? Is this, I think the core of it, the hardliners, the BLM people, the Antifa people, is they know that they have a very expensive, useless educations. They'll never get a good job. So what they need to do is to bring everybody down to their level. And so everybody can be on the dole. Yeah, down to misery, but somebody will take care of you with, breakfast coupons or whatever it is. It is a madness. And unfortunately, we don't have a strong Protestant church in this country anymore. That was really the basis of American economic growth and societal stability.
No, there was a Protestant work ethic that caused Catholics, immigrants, to come here and say, well, they expect me to be Americans, and damn it, they got a good point.
Yeah,
I'm going to be patriotic, and the nuns got us to, to sit, make a pledge of allegiance every day.
And I'm not going to be envious of the wealthy, and I'm not going to be, I'm just going to follow the 10 commandments, do my job, and in doing my job in all ways honors the Lord, and it's what the Lord.
Amen.
There's a strong backbone of that until the 1930s, after the first Great War.
Well, yeah. What happened was, I'll tell you what, this is controversial, but I'll say it anyway. You know what happened? It used to be that we had big families.
Mm-hmm.
And you know why we had big families? Protestants, Catholics, the whole shebang. Because this is controversial. We didn't use birth control. The Lambeth Conference of like 1930, maybe through 1932, got the Protestant churches. I mean, the mainline Protestant church was the Church of England, the Episcopalian, the Anglican Church, to allow it, and then ended up becoming very, very widely practiced. And then people started having very small families, and and look at where we are now. We have like a huge industrial infrastructure that anticipated having all these new Americans being born. No longer the case. They have to make big chocolate bars, giant size, Slurpees, giant 32-ounce soft drink cups. That's crazy, man. It wasn't like that in the 1960s when I was growing up.
No.
And at that time, why? Because we had five kids.
I didn't know you grew up in the 60s, because when I heard you say chicks, I knew that was the 60s. See, Mike goes back even better. He goes to the 40s and the 50s. He calls them broads.
yeah, I know. That was, sure, man. Yeah, sure, it was broads, yeah. Or dames. How about dames? Yeah, but I mean,
my dad always used to say dames is trouble.
Yeah, man. And so, but here's my point. The idea is that we had to bring in all these foreigners. We needed foreigners to come in to be workers, consumers, users of our economy, paying taxes, paying Social Security, the whole thing. Because why? Because we ended up gutting our country. Mm-hmm. And in the process, we lost our sense of nationhood.
Yeah, we did. And we also were indoctrinated by the government to think that Americans that only paid $20 an hour, and that's an idiocy. It's people would have taken those jobs. We don't need anybody to come into this country to run our computers.
Come on, man. I mean, sure.
Hey, listen, the tech business is a whole different show. We could do the whole show on tech.
I know. Let's go back to JFK.
Is he still around? Is he still around?
I mean, you remember the National Enquirer? This is funny, man. The National Enquirer.
Well, you know what the hot thing is? Hold on, Bill. Let me get this thought before I forget. Do you know the hottest thing on these websites and these chat rooms is JFK Jr.'s in Trump is connection with Trump. JFK's Jr.'s coming back with Trump. That's the hottest crap, man.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, but sure. The original fake news was a World Weekly News, and there was this guy, I forget his name. He's from North Carolina, and this guy, he would have, like the National Enquirer, but even crazier. this guy would have editorial meetings when he said, look, don't let truth get in the way of a good story. Don't forget the facts. Don't let the facts ruin a really good cover story. So he'd have, Bill Clinton being abducted by aliens, Hillary rescuing him, and Elvis Presley with Jackie Kennedy, and or the Queen at Buckingham Palace dancing to, you ain't nothing but a hound dog.
She's around for 13 presidents now. You believe that?
Oh my gosh, man.
Well, wait, let's just go to JFK, round this up because I got to get off soon.
Yeah,
JFK, then we had the Warren Commission, right?
Yeah.
Right, Mike? Warren Commission. And then guess who became the president later on? Who did they pick? Gerald Ford, ? Gerald Ford became president. And that's another super cover-up artist.
On the Warren Commission. Stunning.
Warren Commission. Then you have Gerald Ford, who said he's going to save the nation. He's going to, step in, and he's going to take office. And then his headlines in the New York paper when I was young, you remember, Mike, Gerald Ford to New York, drop dead. It was supposed to be a bailout. They broke bankruptcy, remember?
I remember that, man.
It was Gerald Ford.
Daily News.
Yeah, drop dead. Oh my gosh, imagine that today. They'd assassinate you for that. You have to bail out everybody.
Oh, of course. You can't be any losers. Everybody gets a participation prize.
Yes.
But I mean, but let me tell you, I do think Lee Harvey Oswald did it. He's a commie. The rifle, actually, I think was pretty good. That's controversial to say, maybe. But the autopsy was a mess. And but anyway, I want to leave that out there. I have these people saying, well, Bill, you heard these guys, they told you the truth about what really happened. I know. So I don't agree. I don't totally agree with everything that people say. But
I think when JFK was assassinated, Santa was smoking a cigar in Tampa area, having some Italian meal, and just giggling because, remember, he was in jail in Havana years ago, Santo. You know that, right, Bill? They jailed him twice. His wife went and bailed him out. He was in prison.
Oh, well, that was good. Nice of her to do that.
It's a tragedy that will always kind of be there. But, the Democrats don't talk about Kennedy anymore, basically, because of the policies he followed were not nowhere near what they're following today.
Absolutely. You're right, Mike.
He was an America First guy.
He was an America First guy. Absolutely. And I don't know if he would have been a great president or not, but he is not somebody who is high in the lists of the Democratic Party's pantheon anymore.
Yes.
And the other thing that I would say is I don't have a clue about who killed him. It could have been the KGB alone. It could have been the KGB, the Cubans in Oswald. It could have been the mafia.
Could have been all three.
It could have been some combination of it. But the one thing that I firmly believe is there was more than one shooter. It's just hard to believe that he did what he did, and he had bullets that found the way to get him in the back of the head and the front of the head at the same time. It's bullets through the windshield and bullets from the back. I don't know. I just don't buy it.
Sure. Okay. Well, to be continued with the two
Look forward
mics
to it
on Quorum Radio.
It's really great to finally get on your show. I mean, we knew we were going to come on one time, but I don't know. It was like you forgot our number.
Yeah, man, it was great. Hey, listen, to Two Mics. Thanks. Remember, guys, how do people find the Two Mics? You also have a blog, don't you?
He has a blog. Mike, go ahead.
I have a blog. It's called non-intervention, the numeral 2.com.
Just put his name in Google. It'll come right up. He's right there at the top.
Non-intervention, the numeral 2.com.
Awesome.
And as for the both of us, you see behind you the Two Mike show, Colonel Mike and Dr. Mike. You could just look us up on Apple, Peaches, Pumpkin Pie, Rumble, Bumble, all of the podcast things. You'll find us. I'll tell you, just put it in anywhere. Now, Two Mics comes right up on Google and Bing and all of these things. And we're coming up, Bill, on our 100th episode.
Wow.
Now, should I tell them the good news, Mike, before we sign off?
Yes.
Okay. Mike likes this the most. Do you know we beat
Yes.
Mark Levin by 1 on the Apple podcast list? 1
Awesome.
week. we come out.
Congratulations.
And everybody calls him the great one. Well, we're the great ones. Okay. We did a good job. But thank God because he blessed us. Okay. We have to give it to God. All right. So here it is.
Amen.
We
Then you're
beat-
right.
We beat Mark Levin by 1, which is a great accomplishment for guys that were on here 6 months on a podcast,
Awesome.
10 years on radio on and off. Okay. But
Must be good.
here's the bonus round. We beat the Blaze in 3 categories. 3 shows that they had, we beat them by 7.
And this is on which platform? On Apple?
Apple.
iTunes?
Podcast. Apple
Oh, really?
Podcast.
Yeah, I'll just say this in closing, that on Rumble, you guys did an interview recently at 70,000 views.
Oh,
Recently.
it's amazing. We have listeners. We have about 11,000 subscribers now, Bill, but our listeners are all around the world. They're diverse. They communicate. We have listeners that came with us from the radio, but we have just great guests. I mean, we like to have
Yes, sir.
political conversations, but we have all kinds of conversations. And I
Well,
couldn't
that's
have
great.
got a better
Awesome.
partner to do this show than Dr. Mike, because we just have fun doing it,
Yeah, man, it's a blast. You got the chemistry, which is very important, projects to your listeners. They love it. They come back again and again and tell their friends and family. Good. Well, guys, hey, good. Thank you.
Well, we'll get the
Thank you,
Nobel
Mike and Mike.
Prize. Do they have the Nobel Podcast Prize? We'll get it next year. We'll go for it.
I'm going to put you guys up for it, man. If Obama can get it, you guys deserve it 10 times more.
Well, thank you for having us, sir.
Hey, thanks so
Hey,
much,
my
Bill.
pleasure, Mike and Mike. Yes.
Great being on.
Yes, sir.
Quorum Radio with the 2 mics. And that's Billy Mack. That's your nickname.
Yes, sir. Quorum Radio coming at you with open to all sorts of perspectives on the JFK assassination. So I welcome all comers on Quorum Radio.